ugly.
Five.
Who are the best and who are the worst NFL teams? It's Mike Gill's Fine Five and Ugly Five on 97.3 ESPN FM, South Jersey's football station.
That's right. Who are the 5 best and the 5 worst teams in the NFL halfway through the year? Probably not the 10 teams we had in either spot to start the year. Let's see what we end up with this week in the Fine Five, Ugly Five. Josh, you got your 5s. I've got my 5s. Let's start off with the uglies in the Ugly 5 department. Number 5, I'm going this week with the number 5 spot to the New York Football Jets. A lot of drama, quarterbacks problems, injuries. You've got players kind of being rebellious. Bowles might have lost all sorts of control there. The Jets are a dumpster fire.
Dumpster fire is the appropriate term. They're my number 5 team as well. I'm just so over this team, Mike. I'm over the fact that this team had so many expectations, so much talent, and yet they do nothing with it on the field. And then you hear that Wilkerson and Richardson don't even show up to meetings half the time. You know, and it makes you wonder, what is the point? What is the point in thinking this team's going to be good if they're going to be this garbage on the field?
Hey, guess what? A lot of times, the expectations that you have for a team come down to the player performing, right? I mean, that's a basic statement right there. You got good players, but you got knuckleheads. Richardson and
Wilkerson.
Those two guys are – you got those two guys on your interior defensive front. You should think, look, we are stopping the run. Teams should not be able to run the ball on us. And unfortunately, those guys just don't bring it. Number 4, how about those Chicago Bears? The Chicago Bears coming in at number 4. Win this week for the Bears. They actually pulled one off, but they've got all sorts of issues still. They've got a lot of injuries. This is just not a very good football team. When we're trying to find 5 bad teams, they are certainly in that mix.
Yeah, I think they got a little lucky against the Vikings, but I think overall on the season, you're seeing why this team isn't a very good team. They just don't have the horses. They don't have the offensive line as a whole. They don't have the weapons outside of Jeffrey and who's the tight end again? Miller. So, I mean,
Miller.
Yes, the offense only could do so much. Then the defense, you can tell it's very thin.
Oh, they're just not a good. I mean, yes, you just said it too. They knocked off Minnesota. It was an ugly game. It's at home in the division. You expect that sometimes. They're still a bad football team. Number 4 in our Fine 5, Ugly 5. So far, we're going right down the line. How about Jacksonville at number 3? The
Same.
Jacksonville Jaguars, who, look, another team. I think Bortles, I've said over the years, I wasn't a big Bortles fan. He had a good year last year, and I gave you my reason why I thought he had a good year last year. This guy is just not a franchise number 1 overall pick player. Not happening. Sorry, it's time to move on.
I still think Bortles can be a good NFL quarterback. I think the problem is that you have a defensive-minded head coach who's in way over his head. You have an offensive coordinator who was just fired. You got a new guy having to walk in and clean up basically what is like sending Serve Pro to a house that got flooded by a hurricane. In this offense, it's an absolute mess. I think this whole coaching staff is going to be gone at the end of the season anyway.
Probably should be. By the way, the defensive-minded coach, they're a minus 62. They've given up 215 points. The Jags are 2-6. I've got Cleveland. I know they're 0-9. I know they've lost 9 straight. I still contend that they play harder than San Francisco does. So I'm going Cleveland over San Francisco in the number 2 spot.
Yeah, Mike, I'm still on the flip-flop with you here. Listen, man, I go by the BCS concept here. You got to win a game for me to put you ahead of the other team. I need Cleveland to at least win me a game to move them out of that one spot.
My motive is if these two teams played on a neutral site, I think Cleveland beats them.
You would hope.
Realistically, that's why
I just feel like
San
Cleveland is such a weak roster that San Francisco would find a way to beat them at least half the time.
I don't know what's making San Francisco's roster any stronger. I mean, they don't got much.
They got Carlos Hyde at least.
And he's hurt.
Now he is. Yes. True.
All right. So that's the Ugly 5. Well, it all held to form for us there. They're the 5 worst teams in the league. These are the 5 best. I had a real hard time finding a 5th best team, so I'm just tipping my cap to a team that surprised me, and that's the Oakland Raiders. They've won 3 in a row. This is why they're in my Fine Five. They're 5-0 on the road. That's a winning team right there. That's a team you got to take serious. A 5-0 road team. The Oakland Raiders, number 5 in my Fine Five.
You took my number 5. They were definitely in my 5. You beat the defending Super Bowl champions. You run all over that defense. I mean, I know Aqib Talib was injured and didn't play, but you got to give him credit. Like you said, they're 5-0 on the road. This team is a legitimate playoff contender. And as far as I'm concerned, there's not many teams that are better than them at this point.
I'm interested to see who you have in your 4-3-2-1 spot. Somebody in there has got to be different than one of the teams
it is.
I have.
I bet it is.
All right, number 4, Seattle. I think the Graham getting involved in the offense really helped that team out. They're 5-2-1. They don't sound like they're having a great year. They just seem like they're not the same as the Seahawks have been. Their defense is only giving up 134, and now Graham seems like he's getting involved. Once they get that run game going, if they can get Thomas Rawls back, they might just be the favorite in the NFC quietly. That just shows you how thin. It's like the SmackDown roster. This is how thin Seattle is right now. I like that reference.
I do like that. That was good. I do have the Seahawks in my Fine Five, but I had them at 4. I have the Falcons at 4. I have the Seahawks higher. Listen, I gotta give.
Well,
Falcons,
there's the team that's not in mine.
Okay, well the Falcons are in mine, and here's why. You beat Tampa Bay in Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
You're competitive with the Broncos. You've been competitive with the Seahawks. You are making a statement that if you just get things to bend one or two ways, you can be competitive. Now, a lot can change if they lose in Philly this Sunday.
I would say they're like 6 or 7 for me.
Okay.
So they're right there. But they got to give me a signature somewhere, something. I know Denver, that's good. That's a good one. That puts you in the tops. That gets you in my conversation. But I got to find something somewhere else. They've let me down too many times. And their defense stinks. Number 3, Kansas City. To me, Kansas City is overlooked. They've won 16 out of 18 games. They've won 4 in a row this year. I just like the team. I mean, they're balanced. They run the ball really well. They play really good defense. I don't love the quarterback situation out there, but they've proven to be able to win with Alex Smith. They won last week with Nick Foles. You know I'm not a big Foles guy. Macklin might not play this week. That could be a problem. But they just seem, doesn't matter. Macklin's out. Someone else comes in and we win. West goes out, Charles comes out. Here comes Ware. I think it's a team that is just really sound regular season team. I don't know that they're a Super Bowl team. But right now they're number 3 in my Fine Five.
Chiefs are not in my Fine Five at all, so that's the team I have out. I am uncomfortable with the quarterback situation. I'm uncomfortable with the fact that I feel like the defense on the blitz is a little underwhelming. I do like their secondary, and I feel like this Chiefs team, this is the prototypical, you're built to win games in a regular season, but you're not built to win in the postseason. And I feel like they're going to face teams in the postseason. They're going to just overmatch them talent-wise and coaching-wise.
I don't disagree wholeheartedly with that. I want to see more from them, but I agree that they might not be a great playoff-built team. 2 is Dallas.
Same.
I mean, they're just solid, man. And a lot of people don't want to hear that, and some people can't believe. I've been saying it for weeks. Dallas is the most complete NFC team, I think, and I've been saying it for a couple of weeks now. The one thing for me, if they're struggling to run the ball in a playoff game, do they have enough defense against a good team, against a good, solid team? Now, they're probably going to play home games in the playoffs, although Philly should have beat them, So I don't know how big of a home field advantage Jerry's World is. Anyway, the Eagles have been very good in Jerry's World in its, inception.
I have to give a lot of credit to the Cowboys coming in this season. I was very worried about their defense. They've really shown up this season. I feel like, I don't know if this is the most complete team as you say, Mike, but I believe this is the hottest team in the NFC.
They're a complete offensive team.
Okay, I'll go with that. They're a complete offensive team. Defense, I'm a little worried right now without Barry Church, without Mo Claiborne. How are they going to do for the next few weeks? I want to see how they do, and I want to see what's going on with Tony Romo. Tony Romo's back at practice.
Cleared.
Do they stick him back in, then they start losing? Do they keep Dak in, they start losing, and bring Tony in? A lot of questions still going for the Cowboys.
And the Patriots at the tops of the list, they're only getting better. They're only getting better. The New England Patriots, number 1 in this week's Fine Five.
Is Tom Brady not on I am going to annihilate you tour or what? I mean, this guy is going out there every game just wanting to prove a point.
Your midseason MVP is?
I guess it's Tom Brady at this point. I've been saying Von Miller for weeks, but after that game against the Raiders, I've kind of lost some of my luster for Von Miller. So I'll slide Tom Brady.
I'll
in there.
say this: if Atlanta makes the playoffs,
Matt Ryan,
and Derek Carr makes the playoffs, that's going to be a battle to see which one of those two, because those two would be deserving. Because if those two teams make the playoffs, that's because their quarterbacks got them there.
what if the Lions make the playoffs?
I don't think. Oh man, I that's a good question. It's a fair question. I don't think Stafford.
I think
put
Stafford
it in
does.
perspective.
I think Stafford does more with less than Matt Ryan does.
Put it in perspective, though. Detroit scored 205 points. Atlanta scored 305 points.
Matt Stafford's doing more with less.
Right, but the MVP a lot of times comes down to the gaudy numbers. And if they both have similar amount of wins, I think they're going to go to the guy who has bigger numbers.